What if a woman quietly walked into a hotel and was turned away right in front of her own name, engraved on the wall? Who would you guess she is? On that chilly, grey afternoon in Denver, the last rays of sunlight slipped through thick clouds, casting a soft glow on the stone-paved path leading to Valerian Suites, a luxury hotel nestled in the heart of the bustling business district. A black SUV came to a quiet stop at the main entrance, its engine silencing as the door opened. Stepping out was not a busy executive or a celebrity, but a middle-aged woman in a cropped grey jacket, her hair neatly tied back, soft leather loafers on her feet, and a worn fabric bag in hand. No one paid attention to her. No one imagined that this woman was Selina Morgan, the founder and CEO of the renowned Valerian Suites chain, with properties stretching from California to New York. She had no assistant, no entourage, no security detail, and no one waiting to greet her. She simply wished for a quiet night before an important board meeting the next morning. But the quiet she hoped for never came. Inside the hotel, the grand lobby glowed with warm golden light, reflecting off marble walls and hazelnut-colored leather furnishings. Behind the sleek glass reception desk, the front desk staff chatted cheerfully with an elderly couple who seemed to be regular guests. A tray of champagne was offered to them, accompanied by a warm greeting, "We're honored to welcome you back," spoken with polished professionalism. Selina approached the front desk with a calm expression and a steady tone. "I'd like to check in. My name is Selina Morgan." The young woman behind the counter, around 24 years old, named Haley Brooks, didn't look up right away, her eyes fixed on her screen and fingers typing rapidly. It wasn't until the name was repeated that she paused and looked up, brows slightly furrowed. "I'm sorry. I don't see your name in the system. The hotel is fully booked. We're only accommodating guests with prior reservations," she said in a mechanical, unenthusiastic voice, as if turning away a homeless person who had stumbled into the wrong place. Selina maintained a gentle smile. "There's always a room reserved for me. I think if you check again, you'll find it." Haley let out a short laugh, tinged with arrogance, then said quietly but clearly, "I'm afraid tonight there are no exceptions." With a dismissive look, she turned to her phone, signaling the conversation was over. Selina remained composed. She tilted her head slightly, her gaze calm, as if watching a clock ticking out of rhythm. "You may call the manager on duty," she said with quiet grace. Haley shrugged and pressed the internal call button, then turned to her co-worker and muttered, "She says she owns the hotel." A soft chuckle followed from behind, along with a man's amused voice. "I guess she thinks she's someone important." Selina didn't flinch, didn't shift her stance, didn't respond. She was used to looks like those, used to the way the world assigns value to a person by the shoes they wear, the color of their skin, and the posture they carry. But she wasn't here to prove anything. She came to see how Valerian Suites, the creation she had built with her bare hands, would treat her when no one knew who she was. And what was unfolding before her eyes was the answer. When Haley set the phone down, less than 2 minutes later, the duty manager, Vincent Shaw, emerged from the side door beside the reception desk. He carried a clipboard, his tie slightly askew, tall and slender, with eyes that scanned each person as if silently categorizing guests by some invisible standard. He walked over without looking at Selina and addressed Haley directly. "What's going on?" Haley glanced towards Selina and shrugged. "She says she owns the hotel but doesn't have a reservation." Vincent smirked, then shifted his gaze to Selina, speaking politely but with clear doubt. "Good evening, ma'am. Is there something I can assist you with?" Selina didn't respond right away. She stood tall, calmly pulling out her phone, her eyes never leaving Vincent. "I'm Selina Morgan. This is a hotel I founded. I'm currently being denied access to my own property. Please verify and resolve this immediately." She made a brief phone call, just 18 seconds. No lengthy explanation, just her name, the location, and a single decisive request. When the call ended, Selina put her phone back in her bag without another word and waited. But the air in the lobby was no longer calm. A man sipping whiskey at the bar a few meters away turned his head to look. A middle-aged woman in a fur-trimmed coat glanced at Selina with visible disdain. The couple who had been served champagne earlier whispered to each other and laughed. Perhaps the situation might have remained merely uncomfortable if not for the two security guards who appeared simultaneously from opposite ends of the hallway. One positioned himself near the elevators. The other leaned against the wall by the coffee station. They said nothing, did nothing, just watched silently. But their presence, quiet yet unmistakable, was enough to weigh down the entire atmosphere in the lobby. Selina remained unflinching, neither stepping back nor raising her voice. She had seen those kinds of looks many times throughout her career. But what disappointed her most wasn't the judgment itself. It was how familiar it all felt. So familiar it no longer surprised her. Haley looked to Vincent, waiting for instruction. Vincent hesitated for a brief second, then turned to Selina, attempting a thin, strained smile. "We just want to verify things. Since you don't have a reservation, we need to be sure before granting access to any of the premium rooms." But Selina didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She simply stood still, with a quiet poise and unshakable presence that made Vincent begin to feel uneasy. Not because she had done anything wrong, but because she wasn't reacting the way someone being denied was supposed to. And that, more than anything, was what unsettled the entire system. The wall clock in the lobby of Valerian Suites read exactly 6:31 p.m. when the elevator chimed, its sharp tone slicing through the tense air. Nearly everyone in the lobby turned their heads at once. 2 people stepped out, but their presence carried the weight of 5. The first was a silver-haired man in a meticulously tailored grey suit, each stitch on his sleeves catching the warm light above. That was Miles Donovan, Regional Vice President, a man who only appeared when the matter was urgent. Walking beside him was Inez Calderon, the Regional Operations Director, a folded tablet in her hand, lips pressed tightly, the clicking of her heels sounding like a verdict being delivered with each step. Neither said a word as they made a direct line toward Selina. No nod to the front desk, no glance at the staff. They moved as if the rest of the world had vanished. Vincent Shaw froze instantly, his face draining of color. Haley Brooks nearly swallowed her own breath at the sight of Miles, a figure she had only heard described as someone who showed up when lawsuits were about to explode. "Ms. Morgan." Miles's voice rang out, deep, steady, slicing through the scattered murmurs in the lobby. He stood before Selina, bowed slightly. "We apologize. This was a system failure, but more importantly, a failure of people, and we will address it immediately." Inez followed, her voice exhaling as if she had sprinted down the entire hallway. "Suite 1702 is ready. Your driver is waiting downstairs. Morning coffee and your preferred menu will be prepared as usual. And if you wish to meet privately with the HR team this evening, I can arrange it right away." Their words cut through the air like sharp blades. The guests seated at the leather chairs near the bar stopped chewing. A man lowering his whiskey glass froze mid-motion, his fingers stiff. Haley Brooks stood paralyzed, lips parted in disbelief. Vincent took a slight step back, the clipboard in his hand tilting as if trying to hide it. Selina did not react with a smile, nor with any trace of victory. She simply stood, posture straight as stone, her eyes sweeping across the room. From the doubtful glances, the head-to-toe appraisals of her appearance, to the smirks that had once assumed she was no one of importance. "One phone call," Selina spoke, her voice level, not loud, yet each word poured into the ears like a morning sip of black coffee. Bitter, bold, and unforgettable. Just one phone call, and I was treated as I should have been from the start. Miles and Inez stayed silent. They knew she wasn't looking for promises. She was remembering. From the back, a woman in athletic wear whispered to her companion, "Oh my God, she's the owner." The man nodded, stunned, his eyes locked on Selina. Meanwhile, Haley took a half step backward, her hand unconsciously clutching the hem of her uniform. In front of her now stood not an unregistered guest, but the woman who had built the empire she worked for, the one she had insulted with ignorance and bias. Selina nodded lightly to Miles. "I'll go up now, but make sure tomorrow morning every manager is present in the ground floor conference room by 7 a.m. No absences." Her voice was not loud, but it carried the weight of someone who once carried an entire hotel chain through a financial crisis. Without another word, she accepted the room key from Inez and walked toward the elevator. Each step marked a punctuation point, a lesson for those who had once stood on the wrong side of prejudice. And the lobby of Valerian Suites, once a symbol of welcome and luxury, now held only a heavy silence. Not from the absence of sound, but because everyone knew the real storm had yet to begin. Suite 1602 sat atop the highest floor of Valerian Suites, quietly removed from all the sounds below in the hotel lobby. When the door closed behind Selina Morgan, the cool air and the subtle scent of cedarwood wrapped around her like an invisible blanket. The room was perfect down to every detail. Towels folded into the shape of swans, warm lighting casting a soft glow on the still life painting above the bed, and the dining table neatly set with a tray of crisp sourdough toast and a steaming cup of black coffee. But Selina did not sit down right away. She walked to the large glass window, gently pulled the curtain to the side, and let the Denver night skyline stretch out before her. The lights of the buildings flickered like distant flames, beautiful yet cold, glimmering yet indifferent. She placed her canvas bag onto the chair and stepped toward the table. Beside the familiar breakfast setup was a small, neatly folded piece of paper. When she opened it, a firm, handwritten note appeared. "I am tonight's head chef. 6 years ago, I was the one who opened the door for you the first time you came here at the grand opening. Tonight, I looked at you and did not recognize you. But your eyes, the eyes I remembered so clearly, made me realize. I'm sorry I forgot." Selina paused for a second, then placed the note down on the table, her fingers unconsciously tightening. It wasn't anger. It was the quiet ache that came from gestures like this, apologies that weren't performative, that made old scars sting the most. She sat down in the brown leather chair by the window, took off her shoes, let her shoulders relax, but her mind remained with the conversation that had taken place downstairs less than an hour ago. She had not been angry. She didn't need to raise her voice to reclaim her dignity. But deep inside, she knew what happened today was not an anomaly. It was proof that even after building 15 hotels, signing dozens of investment deals and creating jobs for thousands, she could still be seen as a stranger the moment she walked in, wearing simple clothes and dark brown skin. Memories returned. She was 25 back then, just promoted to assistant executive for a small hotel chain. She walked into an investment summit wearing a blazer borrowed from her sister, clutching a folder in her arms. A receptionist had handed her a mop. She had laughed it off at the time, but the sting lingered like a cut soaked in rain. Nearly 2 decades later, for that same past to replay in the very empire she built felt like a silent but undeniable slap. She picked up her phone. A message from her assistant lit up. "The media is standing by. If you wish, we can release the story first thing tomorrow morning." Selina stared at the message for a long moment, her finger gliding softly across the screen. A single tweet could turn the incident into headline news across every paper. But she swiped the message away. Not now. This was not about retaliation. This was a lesson, and she would begin teaching tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. The first light of day was not yet warm enough to dispel the lingering chill of the previous night, but in the ground floor meeting room of Valerian Suites, the air felt stifling, like midday in the peak of summer. The room was silent, save for the rhythmic tapping of a pen in the hand of Ellen Price, the Director of Human Resources. Beside her, Miles Donovan and Inez Calderon flipped through folders, eyes fixed on the pages, but ears attuned to the dark wooden door. Across the table, Vincent Shaw sat bolt upright, his face drained of color. The blue tie he had worn since last night still hadn't been straightened. Haley Brooks curled into the corner chair, her hair messily tied, fingers fiddling with the hem of her blouse, her face pale as if recovering from a fever. The door opened. No introductions, no announcements. Selina Morgan entered in a charcoal grey suit, each step of her heels striking the floor with a firm click, like a ticking clock. She carried no folders, no assistant, and made no move to sit. She stood at the head of the table, arms loosely folded, eyes sweeping across each person. No fury, no blame, only silence honed to a razor's edge. "We will not waste time with apologies," she said, her voice low but resonant. "I want to hear from each of you what happened last night in your own words. And I want the truth, not a copy of the internal report." The room was frozen. Vincent cleared his throat, but when he tried to speak, the words caught. Eventually, it was Haley who spoke first, barely above a whisper. "We didn't know who you were." Selina gave a slight nod, her gaze still locked on Haley. "Did I raise my voice? Cause a scene?" Haley shook her head, eyes cast downward. "No, you were very calm." "Then why was I denied?" Selina took a measured step toward Vincent. "Because I didn't fit your idea of what power looks like. Isn't that right?" Vincent blinked rapidly, as if hoping someone else would intervene. Ellen straightened in her seat, ready to speak, but Selina raised a hand to stop her. "I'm not asking to assign blame. I'm asking so we can reflect. You are not the first people to turn me away. But what concerns me is that you didn't even realize you did it." The air in the room grew heavier. Selina's voice was not didactic, but each word landed with the weight of a stone placed slowly on a moral scale. "I used to be a front desk clerk like you, Haley," she continued, her tone softening but not losing strength. "I've been called Miss instead of by my name. I've been told I was too assertive for front of house. I endured those things not so that today, in a hotel I built with my own hands, I would see the same mistakes repeated. Miles nodded and interjected. We've prepared an emergency action plan. Starting this week, all staff will undergo intensive retraining on bias-free hospitality. The materials won't be dry slides. It will include real-life scenarios, including what happened to you last night. Selina gave a slight nod, but her gaze remained firm. I don't need rehearsed lessons. I want you to see, to empathize, and to adjust the lens through which you view others. Ellen scribbled notes rapidly. Inez typed into her tablet, murmuring, "Convert to scenario-based training. Implement quarterly repetition." Selina glanced around. No one smiled. No one made excuses. There were no more justifications. She pulled out her phone, opened her calendar. In 1 month, I will return. Unannounced. No need for grand reception. I just want to see how you treat someone when you don't know who they are. Then she closed her phone, turned on her heel, and left the room weighed down by one singular silence. Awareness. 9 a.m. The staff break room at Valerian Suites was tucked behind the coffee bar, a space usually reserved for rushed moments between shifts and quick breathers during peak hours. No one ever paid it much attention on an ordinary morning, except today. The air in the room was thick with the scent of burnt pastries, stale coffee, and something heavier, the quiet weight of shame. Haley Brooks sat alone at a chipped metal table, clutching a cold latte, her eyes red from a sleepless night. Her hair, normally pinned neatly, was now a messy tangle, as if she hadn't bothered to comb it. Her hands trembled slightly, not from the cold, but from the fear of what awaited her beyond that door. A soft creak signaled the door opening, not loud, but enough to make Haley jump. In walked Selina Morgan, still in her charcoal suit and white blouse, face bare of makeup, her eyes deeper than ever. Haley shot up, nearly spilling her drink. I'm sorry, she stammered, but Selina raised a hand. Sit. I didn't come to complete a round of punishment. This isn't part 2, like you think. Haley slowly sat down, not daring to lean back in the chair, her hands clasped like a child waiting for a report card. Selina sat across from her, arms on the table, looking directly at her, not with scrutiny, not with pity, but with the gaze of someone who had once been in that same seat. Have you ever worked a job that made you feel unseen? Selina asked gently, like she was speaking to an old friend. Haley nodded slowly, her voice quiet and strained. I worked at a gas station off the highway once. Cold nights. People ignored me like I was invisible, and the manager yelled every time I spoke. I hated that feeling. She looked down, then up again, eyes filled with shame. But last night, I made someone else feel exactly the same. Selina nodded. I've been there too. Working the night shift at a hotel front desk in Philly, guests called me, "Hey you," and my manager told me I was too sharp for a front-facing role. I used to think that if one day I could change this industry, I'd make sure people like you and me, whether guests or employees, would be seen for their worth. She leaned forward, eyes fixed on Haley. But last night, you reminded me that dream is not finished yet. I'm sorry, Haley whispered, her voice breaking. I thought you were someone else, not the kind of person that hotel owners usually look like. She trailed off, unable to finish. Selina smiled gently, not angry. You mean someone who isn't brown-skinned, not wearing designer labels, carrying a faded canvas bag, right? Haley nodded, tears brimming. That's the biggest trap, Selena said. We fall for an image and forget that character doesn't come from appearance. The issue isn't that you made a mistake once. It's that if you don't wake up from it, you'll keep hurting people who are just like who you once were. Haley pulled a tissue from her pocket and dabbed her tears. Her voice was barely audible. I'll change. I don't know if I'll still have this job, but I want to learn. I want to understand. Selena stood, adjusting her cuff. I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to be honest. And next time someone walks in, no matter what they wear or what color their skin is, start with respect. Can you do that? Haley nodded firmly. I promise. As Selena stepped out of the break room, the heaviness no longer lingered like before. Outside, Valerian Suites bustled as if nothing had happened. But somewhere in the way, a staff member opened a door for a guest. In the tone used at the bar, in how a reservation was taken, there had been small shifts, subtle, but real. And for Selena Morgan, it was those quiet changes that marked the beginning of something right. She climbed into the waiting car, where her driver sat ready. On the back seat lay a small folded note. She opened it. The handwriting was shaky but clear. Thank you for seeing me. I'll try to do better. No signature, but she knew exactly who it was from. And it was the only apology she truly needed. Not for forgiveness, but to continue believing in why she started. In the service industry, where every glance and every word can either touch a soul or cause someone to break, empathy is not a skill, but the foundation for building trust. The story of Selena Morgan is not just a reminder of the invisible biases still present around us, but also proof that true power lies in the unwavering commitment to values, even when no one recognizes who you are. If you believe that every person, regardless of appearance, deserves respect from the very first glance, then like this video, subscribe so you won't miss more powerful stories, and leave a comment with the phrase "See to believe" to help spread this message.